sub-series part 2 of my Motorized Supercycle bike series, dealing with the rear rim issues. On part 1 of this sub-series, we watched me remove the 135mm axle and hardware and bearings from the original rim to get it out so we can move it over to the rim I'm trying to run on that is nice and true and has all its spokes. This one's not true and is missing a spoke. That's why we're doing all of this. However, you cannot run it on, I cannot run it on the 120mm axle because it won't line up, so the chain keeps derailing. I mean, obviously, it's a 135mm frame. It requires a 135mm axle. That's all there is to it. So, we're doing a swap. This is the first time I've ever done this, so, you know, like I stated in part 1, and yeah, so far I've succeeded in pulling the axle out and getting proper measurements. Okay, there is one thing I did forget to mention. You do kind of want to remember what side your stopper side was on. Your stopper side being this side here, whereas the other side that isn't your stopper side, your outer race is going to be separate, and there's just going to be a spacer that pushes against the outer race. Okay, and then you're locking that on top of that, and that's going to be your freewheel side. On the other side is your stopper side. At least in my setup, that's what it was, so I'm sticking with that. And like I said, I have all the measurements, so I know I can check and make sure that it stays within those parameters when I get it back together. Hopefully nothing moved before this. I don't know what those guys at the shop did, so, you know, fingers crossed the measurements are what they should be, because that is my reference point to get it to get this axle to line up correctly in this frame. Otherwise, I will have to do some adjustments and play with it to get it to line up. But anyway, without further ado, first thing we're going to do here is clean up the bearings, get them ready to go. So, I don't know, maybe just try throwing them on a cloth first. We got 9 of them, one for each side, 9 of them. I want to clean them, wipe them first, then inspect them, see if we have any like damages to them, any flat spots, stuff like that. I want to make sure every one of these ball bearings are in good shape. If they're not in good shape, then I don't intend to use them. So let's get them wiped off here. Okay, well, we got them all wiped off, and they all appear to be in pretty good shape. I don't see any flat spots or anything on them, or any dimples or indents, so, I mean, I'd say these bearings are usable. I'm not sure why they weren't spinning as good as they should, but I have a feeling it's due to crappy grease and not putting it back together right after repacking it with grease. In other words, sloppy work, because they just didn't care whether it worked or not. That's what I feel like anyway. So anyway, these bearings are good. We can use them. I don't think it really matters, but I am going to keep the bearings on the same sides they were on before. So these bearings on the sprockets on the freewheel side, the other bearings on the motorized sprocket side. Probably really doesn't matter. Like I said, bearings are bearings as long as they're the correct size bearings. So, you know. But anyway, we'll get to that when we get that. Let's clean off the other 9. It's over here. 9 more of them over there. They're all nice and dirty, so let's get them clean. There's the 9 bearings for the other side. The motorized sprocket side, I believe it is. But either way, I'll figure it out. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But here's the bearings for those. The only reason why I'd like to keep them separate at first is if there is any damage, then I know which side of the hub to check to see if there's any problems with the hub on that rim, because I do intend to use that rim down the road. I'm going to upgrade it, put some bigger spokes in it, you know, 11 gauge, stuff like that. A little bit of cat hair on them, but clean that off before I put them back in the other rim. But these ones are all good too, so we got all 18 bearings perfectly fine, so we don't have to worry about replacing the bearings. Angelica, psst, say hi. It's my sweetheart, my best friend, aren't you, girl? Yeah. So yeah, all our bearings are good. Freewheel side, motorized sprocket side. When we put them back in, now that I know they're all good, it probably won't matter which side I put them in. because I know they're all perfectly good bearings, and like, what difference would it make, right? They're all the same size, so it doesn't really matter if they get mixed up at this point. I know there's no damage to them, so I know I don't have to worry about checking the insides of these hubs. When I do put this one back together someday, all I gotta do is clean it. So, good. So, let's move on. We'll clean up the axle now, which is over here. Definitely could use a good wiping and get all that gross, contaminated grease out of there. Yeah, that could have been a big part of the reason why the bearings weren't spinning as good as they could have been. There, got the axle all nice and wiped off, but you know what? I'm going to take it a step further. Why not? I'm in here, right? Why not do this? Since I'm already into it, why not clean it up? Make it nice. Ugh, there's gunk on there, so I'm going to come off, especially around here. Well, yeah, I just moved that position, but that's okay, because remember, I took those measurements at the beginning. So I'm not too concerned about the fact that I moved the position of it. Those measurements at the beginning are going to tell me where to reposition this. When I put the lock nut back on, I'll be taking that measurement and setting it right to that spot again. So I'm not too concerned at that move. That is why we take measurements at the very beginning. So, we'll just polish it here a little bit. Make sure it's against the side there. Good. Make these threads a little bit. You get the idea. There, that way if there was any gunk within the threads, and just a little bit of rust or whatever, you know, I can get that off of there. And just, you know, anything that'll impede with those bearings spinning as good as possible. And that includes definitely your outer race, which is this right here. You want to definitely get your races cleaned. Look how dirty that is. That is definitely contaminated. That is disgusting grease, and little wonder they were not spinning as they could. So we'll make sure we get that all cleaned out nice. And basically she's going to get a bath. So I'm going to get some Dawn soap and some water. And I'm just going to give it a quick bath. By the time I'm done working with it, it'll be dry. You want to make sure it's good and dry if you're going to use water. Yeah. I would recommend brake cleaner. I just don't have any. So I'm going to go give it a bath and be right back. Okay, there. We got a really nice clean axle and outer race now. So now, ooh. I guess I destroyed that Dremel. I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, there goes that brush. Well, let's finish it off then. Okay, because I just kind of want to get in there and polish it up a little bit more. That's what this brush is for, is polishing. But it looks like I destroyed it. And it happens. This was a cheap Dremel kit, so I'm not surprised I destroyed it. Right. Yeah. Like I was saying earlier, it is a good thing that we took those measurements. Oh, I can feel the whistles flying off. Okay, it's done. Not okay, because you know this does turn very easily when there's no lock nut on it. So it's very easy to accidentally adjust your stopper, and bam, right? I can almost get an idea where it was sitting just by looking at the discolorations, right? But I took my measurements, so I already know. What was it? This would be the freewheel side, and that was 27.2 millimeters, or 1.07 of an inch, with the lock nut on it. So that's my OLD, over lock nut dimensions, on this particular one. I mean, my lock nut, that's my stopper position anyway, not over lock nut dimensions. That's the whole thing, right? Stuff I'm learning along the way here. So anyway, let's move on. So now obviously we got to get the rear rim off of there. A little trick I learned, because between you and me there is gas in this tank. A little trick I learned is you can put a little bit of electrical tape around this and then, you know, avoid spillage, because I'm going to turn the bike upside down. I can't stand trying to take the rim off without doing that. So get some tape around that. Okay, so we got our electrical tape. We're just going to go around the gas cap here. On. Not much on this roll, but I should have enough to do this. Go the other way, because you want to when you pull on it, you want it to tighten, not loosen. So like that. Just pull it nice and tight. And the idea here is to make sure that you don't get any leaks when you flip it upside down. You don't want to do this permanently. I almost said it with electrical tape here. Oh yeah, that's the last of it. Let's hope this is enough. It should be. Okay. Alright, so now we should be able to flip her upside down without any gas spilling. Check before I go any further, make sure nothing's going to leak. Looks like we're good on that. Yeah, she's dry. Alright, so we can continue. We need to get the back rim off. Pretty self-explanatory. I'm sure everybody knows how to take a back tire off. I'm not going to explain it as I go, but we're just going to do this. Well, maybe I'll explain it a little bit, whatever. So, usually I just take the chain and I just derail it. And I derail it to the outer edge here. Actually, normally I don't derail it up here. I derail it back here normally just to the outer edge. Do the same idea with the motorized chain. I believe I'm going to have to loosen the tensioner. Yeah, I have to loosen the tensioner. Now's a good time to double check to make sure no gas is leaking out. Yeah, very good. That trick works. So, tensioner, loosen it. This is my customized skateboard wheel tensioner. And same idea. I just derail the chain like this, and I set it on the other edge. Just make sure it's out of the way. Okay. Size 15 for this frame, probably most of them are. Just take that off. Through. Easy peasy. This is a big friggin' tire for this frame. So I may go to the other tire. It does make it. It is a really tight fit, this tire. This frame I don't believe was even meant to have 26ers on it, let alone the tire's just so fat, but it can work. I guess that is about as fat as that tire can get on this frame. Oh, come on. See how it fights me trying to get it off. And that's because, well, first, get the chain back out there, but because the tire's so fat, everybody almost has to deflate the freaking thing. But I've had it off enough times, I know what comes off. Okay, so you get the idea. Okay, pro tip for the amateur. Don't forget to disconnect the brakes. Of course, duh. Okay. Yeah. Out of the way. And this is why I struggle to get it off. It has nothing to do with the fatness of the tire, even though it is a fat tire in this frame. Just a second. I gotta look. Alright, well, what the challenge that was for some weird reason, but got the brace on hook now. I can take the frickin' rim off. I don't know why. I just have to challenge to get those stupid brakes on hook. But that's sort of stopping me from being able to pull it off a second ago. There. Finally, get the rim off. Okay. There we go. That's where we got our 120 millimeter hardware that needs to come out so we can put in our 135 millimeter hardware. So you can see my sprocket's mounted perfectly on this one. So quite obviously, this is the rim I'm going to be using. So let's get to that. Any part that requires a chain I hate. And this is why. Ooh, I've been doing this so much, fiddling with this thing. I've had more downtime than I've had uptime with it, so, and more of this than I've had fun driving. So, you know, it really is getting hard on the head because I require it. So, anyway, on we go. The saga continues. Okay, well, we're starting to get a little disorganized here, but whatever. Let's get this axle and hardware into this. First, we need to pull the freewheel. But before I do so, I don't want to lose those. I need those washers. I'll be using the original washers. Before I do so, though, actually after I do so, I'm going to be doing the measurements on this one as well. Just because, what if I ever do want to put, you know, change out rims and want to use this axle or something? It's good to know the measurements, right? So I'll be doing those measurements. But first, we're going to pull the freewheel here. As you can see, I got a really professional setup going on here with my beautiful Angelica running around getting in the way. Okay, so let's set a rim down here. You gotta remember our ball bearings are right here, so down there, down there. Don't lose those. Okay. Are we in the shot? Not really, are we? Try that. It's a little better. So we're going to take our freewheel tool, and again, this is a, I can't pronounce it, Shimeo or whatever. Someone else can probably pronounce it and correct me. But anyway, this is a freewheel tool. There's multiple ones of them, but this one seems to work for the other one, so yeah, it'll work on this one too. Good. Alright, so now we need a 1-inch wrench. And this one should come off fairly easy too, because I believe that shop did at least do this part and swap the freewheels around for me. Although I don't know if they did or not, actually, because that looks like the other one. We'll see. Oh yeah, that's on there. Good. I don't think they did. Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna have to stand this up and put a little bit more effort into it, put some of my weight into it. Makes me wonder if they even did change this at all. I can't tell which one's which. And I won't know until I get the friggin' chain attached and try to pedal. Because it doesn't slip very easily. It only slips when you're under friction and pedaling. So they may not even have done the freewheel swap like I asked them to do. So I don't know which freewheel is which now. I won't know until I get this all done. Go figure. But anyway, here we go. Okay, got it. Now, the freewheel should just spin right off. The bearings on this one are really stiff too. I don't like what they did. The shop definitely feels like they had it out for me or something. It's weird. Alright, freewheel's off. So, to the side. I'll have to inspect those. Maybe I can figure it out before I put them back on which one's which, but I don't think they moved the freewheels around like I asked to, because this one looks pretty worn. And I don't know, it's hard to say. They look the same, because they're both the same. Okay, so here we go. So let's do the measurements now. Okay, so let's get our measurements here. This is the freewheel side. The hub looks quite a bit different. No, actually, no, it doesn't. No, my bad. Just different color. Okay, freewheel side. Get our measurement here. Make sure it's zeroed. Yeah, okay. Let's get it started. Right down to there. And we have 22.4 millimeters on the freewheel side. Okay, just double checked it for safe measure, and it's actually 0.87 of an inch, 22.3 millimeters on the freewheel side. Now, same idea on this side. Lock, if I'm not locked, or the nut off, we're going to need that. That up there. These washers we won't need, more than likely. And we're going to get our measurement here for this side. Okay, now I'm going to double check that and re-zero it. I don't like how the feel of that was. There. And for that side, we got 17.8 millimeters, or 0.70 of an inch. So it's good that I took those measurements for two reasons. One reason is if when I do upgrade this other original rim and I put the hardware back in that one, I definitely want to know where to set the axle, the original axle from this rim, back in it. The other reason is it basically told me that it's not uncommon for one side to be a little bit more than the other, just by a little bit. So that tells me that my other rim is probably set, the stopper was probably set right, my measurements are probably correct to get it lined up when I get the axle in there. So that's good. So now that we've made note of that, we can move on. So just like in part one, we're gonna get our, let's see if I can get this on camera here. Oh. So like in part one, we are gonna have to take the lock nut off first, but surprise, on this particular rim, I'm able to fit a standard 15 mil box wrench in there, so I wouldn't have needed the special wrench for this particular rim. At least not on this side. Maybe the other side I do. We'll see. But we got to do that. Actually, on this particular rim or axle hardware setup, it's actually possible to use a box wrench completely on that rim. So for this particular hardware on this rim, I would not have needed this. But I do need it for the other hardware, so I still am glad I bought it. Plus, it's got other things that are useful for bicycle mechanics. So we need to continue on here and remove the lock nut here. Just like so. Oh yeah, and I need the 18 for that, I forgot. 18. There we go, got my 18. Alright. Get on this. And now we got our measurements, so if we ever want to put this axle back in this rim or another rim, we know where to set it. That's not been removed before, so this may take a little bit of effort. Oh boy, I guess so. Let's see if we can go this way and use my weight. Great, not cool. Slipping. I don't like the idea of that. Nope. Slipping. Wonderful. Hey, I told you guys you might see me fail miserably at this. Let's try the other side. It really doesn't matter which side you pull out. Hopefully this side's a little easier. I just need to get this darn axle out of here. Get on there. Okay. And get it on this side a little easier. No, it's slipping on this side too. So this tool is not doing the trick on this. I might have to use the inch equivalent. Yeah, not cool. I have to use the inch equivalent. Well, that sucks. Some specialized tool, eh? Yeah, look. Even started rounding it off a little bit. Not cool. Give me a second. Let's see what we can do here. Told you there might be some issues. There always is for me. Okay, well, since it'll fit, we'll try the size 15 box. Hopefully it won't slip as easily. I need to get this pulled. There, let's try this now. No. That sucks. Vice grips. Might have to try them. They'll fit on this one, fortunately. But I want to. There we go. There. Okay, I think we got it. Oh, good. Phew. So, thankfully the box wrench fit on that one because the specialized tool was slipping. I only paid $12 for this. But that was on there tight. So let's get that all the way off. That's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, there. So we got our spacer and our lock nut off. So we're ready to take our outer race off. I will say this. That guy who repacked it with grease at the shop alright, and then he tightened it up really friggin' tight. Way tighter than it needed to be. He even messed the threads up a little bit. It took quite a bit of effort just to back the lock nut off after it was already undone. You watched how it slipped with the specialized tool and everything. That's how tight that guy made those. Unnecessarily tight. That was not necessary. So, now we need to get that outer race out to pull the axle. Just like in part 1. It works the same way. I need 15 on this side, and I'll use a special one on this side because I don't have a secondary 15. I don't feel like trying to find the inch equivalent. And I don't have to take the lock nut off on the other side because we're just pulling the axle. So this should work, just doing this. There. And that cap was on a lot tighter than the other one. Not super tight, but tighter. Okay. Just gotta continue getting the race off of there. So, yeah, that's what we're doing here. So. Okay, so same deal as in part 1 when I took the axle out of the original rim. We're just taking the outer race off. This one actually has the outer race connected too. Instead of it being a two-piece on one side like the other hardware, we'll be using the other hardware and bearings and everything on this one. So now we can just pull the axle, and we don't have to adjust the stop or anything. We can just leave that alone. Bearings are going to fall out. They're going to get dirty. As long as I don't lose them, I could probably use them someday. But if they're different size than the ones that are from the other rim, they won't work in this. Or I may have to use these ones. We'll see. So, but I don't think so. I think they look the same size. So let's pull the axle. Not a bad looking axle, but it's just not the right length for this application. Now we've got to pull out the bearings, clean them, clean the hub. So let's do that. Okay, so here's our bearings. We're just going to remove them. And this is a magnetic screwdriver, so it actually is very handy for removing them because they'll magnetically stick to them as well as the grease. So now these might be larger bearings, so if the hub requires larger bearings, I may have to use the bearings from this particular setup. What matters is I'm getting the proper axle in it and the proper stopper length, etc. But the bearings, if they are bigger bearings, I may have to use these ones. We'll have to compare when we get to that point. And I believe same deal, there's 9 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there's 9 of them. And I know one fell out from the other side already. It's on the carpet here somewheres, but we'll find it. Turn it around though. Get the 9 bearings out of this side. Same idea. Well, he did repack it with grease, but boy, did he ever over tighten that. And like, he didn't clean it and anything when he repacked the grease. It's not clean grease by any means. Could at least wipe things off and stuff. Alright, and I got one bearing on the floor here somewhere, so I gotta find it. Oh, that's right, I set it up here. So let's just wipe off this bearing and compare it to the other ones. Okay, so there's the bearing I just took out of the rim that I'm putting the 135mm hardware in. Here's the bearing from the original rim from the Supercycle. They're both the same size, so I got some extra bearings. I can use them all if they're all good. We'll find out when I wipe those ones off. On this side of the hub anyway, the bearings don't seem to be too bad. No damage to them, so I don't have to worry about the hub being a problem. And you know, I could save these bearings and use them with either that axle on a different frame someday, or save these bearings and use them if I ever need them for the Supercycle. So let's clean off the other ones, check them, make sure we don't have to go over the hub and make sure and check for damage. And if not, then we can put the other axle and bearings back in and be set to go, hopefully. Yeah, the other 9 bearings from the other side look all good too. So there's no need to look over the hub. Just wipe her out, clean her up, and get her ready to have new grease put in it. And let's insert the 135mm axle. So now we just want to clean the old grease out of this hub the best we can. And even though I know there's no damages to this hub, might as well check anyway while I'm at it. And she looks pretty good. Pretty clean looking race for the bearings. Flip it around, same side. Get my blanket dirty. Oops. Okay, same idea. And always remember too, if you only, you want to remember what side your hardware came off of. See, I have a spacer and the lock nut, and I got to remember that came off the freewheel side, not the other side. Put it back together wrong, you're going to have problems. So always try to remember that. And that's why the measurements are good to take as well. Nice clean hub for the bearings. So let's get that axle in there. Never done this part yet. Haven't done any of this yet, so you're getting to watch me do this for the very first time. Okay, so I say my first step should be to take my 135mm axle, set my stopper. Remember, this one had one with a fixed race, outer race, and the other one had an outer race that was separate. And instead of it being fixed to the, I don't know if it broke off or if it's supposed to be like that. Either way, it works. So anyway, yeah, so I got to set this and then put the lock nut in to make sure that it's at the right measurements. Remember, we took our measurements down at the very first. This is why. Okay, so let's get that set. So this is not only the reason why we took the measurements, but it's also the reason why we took the notes, because I would have already forgot this if I didn't take the note. The stopper side is the freewheel side. The freewheel side is the side that the spacer and this goes on, right, before the lock nut. So I know that's the side. This is this side now. If I didn't make that little note, I probably would have forgot. So we're going to do that, and then we got to adjust it and set it until we're at, what was it, 27.2 millimeters, or 1.07 of an inch on this side. And then we know we have it set to the right length, or we have our stopper set where it belongs, and then we should be able to insert it into this rim with new grease and the bearings, and we should be good to go. So let's hope. So now we got that back on there, and remember, we're going for 27.2 millimeters. 24.6, we got to go a little bit further. Okay, now we got to go back a little bit. 27.2 is what we're going for. I just thought of a much easier way to do this. Set it to the right length and then check and adjust, right? So that's 27.2 right there. So adjust it till I get to that, right? And there we go, 27.2. The axle's set. I can start to smell gas, so I gotta hurry up and get that rim back on the bike and flip it back over. So there. So now let's get this done. So I would imagine how this is done is you just put your grease on your ball bearings and then insert your axle over the ball bearings like that. And obviously you got to remember, it's important that the stopper side, the 27.2 millimeter side, was most definitely the sprocket side. You can tell the sprocket side because it's threaded, or the freewheel side, wherever you want to call it. So let's get that some grease in there and get some bearings in there and put the axle in, and then we should be almost good to go. All-purpose red tack grease. I'm just going to put some of that in the hub. And I might as well just use the end of the axle to grab the grease and put it in there, considering the whole axle is going to get greased as well. So I would imagine it doesn't hurt to be generous. It is going to be enclosed and spinning after all, under a lot of torque and friction and power. It is a motorized bike. Okay, so there's some grease there. Let's get our ball bearings in there now. Before I put the 9 bearings in, I'm just going to put some other grease all over the hole like that, and then I'm just going to, that way I know it's all nice and greased in there. There, lots of grease. No point being not generous with it. Look, I'll even do that. Bloop. Okay, let's get those bearings in there. Okay, so we're just going to put our 9 bearings in here like this. I assume this is how it's done. This one. And just kind of go around it like that until you get all 9 of them in. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So there's all 9 of our ball bearings back in there. Some nice brand new grease. So let's insert the axle. Like so. Okay, I'm going to have to stand this up a little bit there. I think this just might work. Looks like it's going to work. So now we got to do the same to the other side. We got to get the grease and ball bearings on the other side too. After putting, and then put the collar and race back on. So let's do that. Okay, so now we just put our 9 ball bearings back in around here, like so. So you get all 9 of them in. I'm going to do it with 2 hands, but like that. Okay, so I've got those 9 bearings back in there, and just got to put on the outer race. It goes this way. Spin that back on. Pretty self-explanatory. Okay, there. Now just wipe this excess grease off. Looks like the axle went in just fine. I'm going to wipe that excess grease off, and oh shit. I certainly hope that's from the other rim. Let me check. Okay, well, before I go any further, I got to double check. That may have came out of there. And we don't want to be trying to run on one less bearing, so double check. So lucky what we have here. When the excess grease was smushing out, one of the ball bearings came out with it. So it's a good thing I noticed that. That would have been disastrous. Thank God I caught up on the cloth while I was wiping off the excess grease. Okay, so now I just got to give that race a little snug, and then put the lock nut back on here. There's no spacer for this side, so it's just a lock nut. I've already gave it a spin. Yeah, I'm not super happy with it. The bearings do feel rough. Not sure why, because they looked fine, but I will be buying new bearings and replacing it just to be on the safe side. Maybe it's something to do with the hub. I don't know. The hub looked alright too, but we'll see. It's got brand new grease in it and stuff. Maybe as they run, I don't know. We'll see. So the main thing is the axle went in. So I just got to make sure that the measurements are right once I put the lock nut on, and then we'll put her on the bike and hope for the best. That might be a part 3. This video is getting a little long. Okay, well, my very limited experience is telling me that you don't really want to lock or tighten those races up very tight. Otherwise, you'll lose a lot of your friction. You'll put a lot of friction on those bearings, and you'll lose a lot of your, a lot of your spinning capability. It won't run as smooth. It'll be tight and stiff. This feels rough. I don't like it. But it's going to work for now, I guess. But I'm still going to check and measure on this side. Make sure we're still at 27.2 millimeter. And that's going to be the end of this part 2. Well, it's a good thing I bought the gauge, because during the installation, I somehow managed to move that stopper and the lock nut quite a bit. So we got to back it off some and adjust it some to get back to 22, what was it, 22.7 or 27.2 millimeters. So yeah, got some adjusting to do there. I guess it's better to do the adjusting once it's installed. Lesson learned. Okay, so what I basically did is I just set this to 27.2, leaned it up against here, the depth gauge, and I just, you can't really see because of the lighting, but I just backed the lock nut off until it just barely touches it and keeps it at 27.2. Now I got to set everything right there, and then we'll be all set to keep it at the right area where it should be. So close. I wonder if that would even make much of a difference. $27.1. I wonder if that would make any difference at all. I mean, there is some play within that chain stay. I think I'll leave it right there. There, finally, 27.2. Bang on the way it was. So now I just got to put the lock nut on the other side, and she's ready to go back on the bike, and hopefully will work. You probably didn't have to worry about that point of a decimal, but hey, I'm a perfectionist, so. Okay, so it was around this point that I noticed that I had used the outer race for the rim that I was taking all the hardware off of, and not the two-piece race, outer race that was off the original rim. In the end, I concluded that it's the same spacing, so there's no point. So I stuck with that race, and I believe the other one probably just broke into two pieces anyway, or maybe they're just held together by friction. I don't know, but the other race worked just fine anyway. With that being said, this concludes the sub-series 2 of this Supercycle series. And I'm going to leave it up to you guys in the comment section to let me know if you think this fixed my issue or not. And stay tuned for the next video, because I get a very special project to unveil, which may actually put my Supercycle on the back burner. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Try not to contaminate these bearings, unlike the other one. So just put that on there, and we should be back in business.